Welcome to War Biosis, the podcast where we delve into the lives of history's most fascinating warriors and commanders, exploring the complexities of their characters, the strategic decisions that defined their careers, and the enduring legacies they left on the battlefield. Today we're going to embark on a journey through the life of one of the most infamous figures in military history, Vlad the Impaler, the 15th century prince of Wallachia, a region in what is now Romania. Vlad's reputation for brutality and cunning has endured for centuries, inspiring countless stories, legends, and even a famous literary character. But who was the man behind the myth? Vlad was born around 1431 in the town of Sighisoara, in the heart of Transylvania, a region of breathtaking beauty and strategic importance. The town, with its colorful buildings, winding streets, and imposing clock tower, was a hub of commerce and culture, nestled in the heart of the Carpathian Mountains. It was here, surrounded by the intrigue and politics of the Wallachian court, that Vlad would spend his formative years, absorbing the lessons of his family's history and the complexities of the region's tumultuous politics. His father, Vlad II de Dracul, was a member of the House of Draculesti, a noble family that had produced several prominent figures in Wallachian politics. The name Dracul is derived from the Latin word for dragon, and it's a title that Vlad II had earned as a member of the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric order founded by the Holy Roman Emperor to fight against the Ottoman Empire. This prestigious title would have carried significant weight in the region, reflecting Vlad II's status as a respected military leader and diplomat. As a child, Vlad would have been surrounded by the opulence and intrigue of the Wallachian court, where the air was thick with the scent of politics and power. He would have witnessed the lavish feasts, the elaborate ceremonies, and the whispered conversations in dark corridors, all of which would have contributed to his education in the art of statecraft. His father's experiences as a hostage in the Ottoman Empire would also have had a profound impact on young Vlad, exposing him to the harsh realities of war, the importance of diplomacy, and the brutal efficiency of the janissaries. Vlad's early life was marked by turmoil and upheaval, a period of constant struggle for power and survival. In 1436, when Vlad was just 5 years old, his father became the Prince of Wallachia, but his reign was short-lived. He was deposed and killed in 1442, and Vlad's family was forced to flee for their lives, leaving behind the comforts and security of their ancestral home. This event would have had a profound impact on young Vlad, instilling in him a sense of vulnerability, a determination to survive, and a deep-seated desire for power and revenge. The following years were spent in exile, with Vlad and his family moving from place to place, seeking refuge and support from various noble families and princes. During this time, Vlad would have received an education in the traditional skills of a nobleman, horse riding, sword fighting, and politics. He would also have been exposed to the stories and legends of his ancestors, including the great Prince Mircea the Old, who had fought against the Ottoman Empire, inspiring Vlad with tales of bravery, cunning, and military prowess. In 1448, when Vlad was around 17 years old, he returned to Wallachia with his brother Radu, who had been raised in the Ottoman Empire as a hostage. The two brothers would play important roles in the history of Wallachia, but their relationship was complex and often tumultuous. Radu, who had been converted to Islam during his time in the Ottoman Empire, would later become a rival and even an enemy of Vlad, embodying the conflicting loyalties and allegiances that would define the region's politics for centuries to come. The constant struggle for power, the intrigue, and the violence would all contribute to the development of his character, informing the decisions he made as a military leader and setting him on a path towards greatness or infamy. But what drove him to such extremes? What were the experiences, the relationships, and the events that shaped his worldview and fueled his ambition? The once mighty principality, nestled in the heart of the Balkans, had been reduced to a mere vassal state, forced to pay tribute and provide military support to the Ottomans. The air was thick with tension, as the people of Wallachia lived in constant fear of Ottoman reprisals. It was against this backdrop that Vlad's determination to restore his family's honor and secure his own place in history would drive him to take drastic measures, earning him the reputation as one of the most feared leaders of his time. The road to power was fraught with peril, and Vlad's journey was no exception. In 1456, he became the Prince of Wallachia for the first time, with the support of the Hungarian king Ladislaus V. However, his reign was short-lived, and he was soon deposed by his rival, Vladislav II. This setback only strengthened Vlad's resolve to reclaim his throne and assert his dominance over the region. He spent the next few years in exile, gathering support from the nobles and boyars of Wallachia, and biding his time until the perfect moment to strike. That moment arrived in 1462, when Vlad returned to Wallachia with a small army of loyal supporters. The forests and mountains of Wallachia became the stage for a gruesome spectacle as Vlad's opponents were impaled on stakes, their bodies left to rot as a warning to others. The sound of screams echoed through the valleys, and the smell of death hung heavy in the air. It was a brutal display of power, one that would become synonymous with Vlad's name. One of the most notable examples of Vlad's cruelty took place in the city of Targovinte, where he invited his nobles and boyars to a grand feast. The tables were laden with food and drink, but the festivities were short-lived. As the guests sat down to eat, they were seized by Vlad's soldiers and taken outside to be impaled. This event, known as the Feast of the Boyars, became legendary in its brutality, with estimates suggesting that over 400 people were killed in a single day. The sheer scale of the atrocity sent shockwaves throughout the region, striking fear into the hearts of Vlad's enemies and cementing his reputation as a ruthless leader. Vlad's relationship with his brother, Radu, was also marked by violence and betrayal. Radu, who had converted to Islam during his time in the Ottoman Empire, had become a rival claimant to the throne of Wallachia. In 1462, Vlad had Radu imprisoned and later killed, allegedly for plotting against him. This event would have significant consequences for Vlad's relationships with the Ottomans, who viewed Radu as a loyal ally. The murder of his brother would also weigh heavily on Vlad's conscience, contributing to the complex mix of emotions that drove him. Despite his reputation for cruelty, Vlad was also a skilled military leader and strategist. He implemented a series of reforms to strengthen the Wallachian army, including the creation of an elite corps of soldiers known as the Walachi. These troops were trained in the latest military tactics and were equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry, allowing them to hold their own against the Ottoman Empire's formidable janissaries. Vlad's knowledge of the terrain and his network of spies also gave him a significant advantage, allowing him to launch surprise raids on enemy positions. In 1462, Vlad launched a series of attacks against the Ottomans, using his knowledge of the terrain to devastating effect. The most notable of these attacks took place at the Battle of Targovite, where Vlad's forces defeated a large Ottoman army, killing thousands of soldiers and capturing many more. This victory was a significant turning point in Vlad's career, as it demonstrated his ability to challenge the Ottomans and assert his independence. As the years passed, Vlad's reputation as a fierce and ruthless leader only grew. His name became synonymous with terror, and his methods were studied and emulated by other leaders across Europe. The German historian Michael Beheim would later write of Vlad, "He was a just prince, but very cruel, and he had many people killed for trivial reasons." This assessment captures the complexity of Vlad's character, a man who was driven by a desire for justice and order, but who was willing to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. The duality of Vlad's nature is a fascinating aspect of his story, one that continues to captivate historians and scholars to this day. The impact of Vlad's rule on Wallachia was profound, as he implemented a series of reforms to strengthen the economy and consolidate power. He encouraged trade and commerce, established a strong and efficient administrative system, and promoted the arts and culture. The city of Targovinte flourished under his rule, becoming a center of learning and culture. However, these achievements were often overshadowed by the brutality and violence that characterized his reign. The people of Wallachia lived in constant fear of Vlad's wrath, never knowing when they might be called upon to face his justice. As Vlad's reign continued, the shadows of the Ottoman Empire loomed larger, casting a dark and foreboding presence over the landscape of Wallachia. The year 1476 marked a turning point in his fortunes, as he was forced to flee his beloved principality and seek refuge in the distant lands of Hungary. The winding roads and dense forests that stretched between Wallachia and Hungary seemed to whisper tales of intrigue and deception as Vlad navigated the treacherous waters of Hungarian politics. Upon arriving at the court of King Matthias Corvinus, Vlad was greeted with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The Hungarian king, known for his cunning and strategic mind, eyed Vlad with a calculating gaze, weighing the potential benefits and risks of supporting the exiled prince. As Vlad became embroiled in the intricate politics of the Hungarian court, he formed alliances with various nobles and attempted to secure support for his claim to the throne of Wallachia. The grand halls and chambers of the Hungarian palace seemed to reverberate with the whispers of intrigue as Vlad danced a delicate ballet of diplomacy and deception. Despite these efforts, Vlad's fortunes continued to decline, and he was eventually imprisoned by King Matthias on suspicion of plotting against him. The cold, damp walls of the Hungarian prison seemed to close in around him, as Vlad's mind racing with thoughts of escape and revenge. However, fate intervened in 1476 as Vlad was released from prison and reinstated as the Prince of Wallachia with the backing of the Hungarian king. This marked a significant turning point in Vlad's life, as he now had the opportunity to reclaim his throne and exact revenge on his enemies. As Vlad returned to Wallachia, the landscape itself seemed to reflect the turmoil that churned within him. The rolling hills and dense forests appeared to stretch out before him like a canvas of possibilities waiting to be shaped by his iron will. His later years were marked by a series of brutal campaigns against the Ottomans, during which he employed his characteristic tactics of terror and intimidation. In 1476, he launched a devastating attack on the Ottoman Empire, killing thousands of soldiers and civilians alike. This campaign was notable for its brutality, with Vlad ordering the impalement of countless prisoners and the destruction of entire villages. The screams of the impaled still echoed through the valleys and hills of Wallachia as Vlad's armies marched on, leaving a trail of blood and terror in their wake. The Ottoman Empire, once thought invincible, now trembled at the mention of Vlad's name. His reputation as a ruthless and cunning commander spread far and wide, striking fear into the hearts of his enemies. As the great historian Mircea Stoicescu once observed, Vlad was a man of his time, a product of the cruel and violent world in which he lived. This assessment captures the essence of Vlad's character, a man who was driven by a desire for power and revenge, but also possessed a deep sense of loyalty and justice. As Vlad's life drew to a close, he became increasingly obsessed with his own legacy and the security of his throne. The weight of his years seemed to bear down upon him as he struggled to come to terms with the fragility of human existence. In 1476, he was killed in battle, his body left to rot on the frozen plains of Bulgaria. The news of his death sent shockwaves throughout the region, as allies and enemies alike struggled to comprehend the implications of his passing. Today, Vlad the Impaler is remembered as a complex and multifaceted figure whose brutal methods and cunning politics have become the stuff of legend. His name has become synonymous with terror and brutality, inspiring countless tales and legends that continue to captivate audiences around the world. The legend of Dracula, which was popularized in Bram Stoker's novel, owes a significant debt to Vlad's reputation for cruelty and bloodlust. However, it is also important to remember that Vlad was a real historical figure who lived and breathed in a world of violence and intrigue. As the great historian Edward Gibbon once wrote, "The wind and the rain which beat upon the monuments of the past are the whispers of eternity." The legacy of Vlad the Impaler continues to whisper through the ages, a reminder of the enduring power of human ingenuity and the indelible mark that we leave upon the world. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.